Good evening, good evening, good evening. Buy Black for Life. My Buy Black for Life family, welcome to a Wellness Wednesday conversation that I am over the moon excited about. Welcome. My name is Jerome Hurt, founder and CEO of Buy Black for Life, and it is Wellness Wednesday. And in this case, we're going to talk about financial wellness and financial literacy as April is Financial Literacy Month. And I, as a financial professional, have also two financial professionals with me, and we run the gamut. I think between us, we have almost 80 years of financial experience right here. So I welcome everyone in. No matter where you are watching, whether you're watching live or on replay, please tell us where you are, where you're watching from. Just welcome to the Buy Black for Life family. Um, I'm going to ask each of you really quickly, even though you've been with us before, starting with you, Dr. Tyra. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I am an entrepreneur by heart, and I'm a businesswoman. I run a couple of businesses here in Houston, Texas, JA Consulting and Corporate Tax Solutions, as well as RNS Corporate Training, which this year RNS Corporate Training is on the forefront of what we do. I am a mother of two and a grandmother of two. So, like I said, I'm in Houston. I'm originally from Shreveport, Louisiana, and had a background in agriculture. And just through life, I realized that I was interested in establishing my own business, and so got my MBA, and then went back and got my EDD in education technology. So I write curriculum, and I help business owners write curriculum for their online courses. So with that, I've been in business for about 20 years, and I'm just excited to be here again with Mr. Jerome, and of course with Miss Nicole. And I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And these women are my sisters, so I have no shame in saying that. So, Nicole, my sister, please tell us a little bit about who you are.
So my name is Nicole Benford, and I am currently the program director of a financial literacy program office, I should say, at UNC Charlotte. Our office teaches financial literacy to the students on our campus. We have a few staff members, as well as we have 13 students that work in our office. We teach them about financial literacy so they can teach their peers, because they want to learn from each other. They don't always want to hear from adults. But I love financial literacy has been on my heart for a really long time. I spent 20 years in financial services where I met Jerome. And so this has been something that financial literacy is something I've always done either professionally or through my volunteerism as my career has changed over the years. And so I'm excited to be here. I also am a mother. I have 4 children and 2 grandchildren, one bonus granddaughter and one grandson.
Yes.
I am here located in Charlotte, as indicated by the school I teach at, but also originally from New York. Grew up for a good chunk of my life in Colorado. But have been in Charlotte for the longest. So I've been here over 20 years, and this is home.
It's over 20 years. Wow.
Over
Okay.
20
Yeah. So we're not going to date ourselves. We'll leave it right there.
Well, me and Dr. Tyra admitted that we have grandchildren already dated.
Right.
Yeah, but when they walk around, they probably don't call you guys grandma because you don't look like it. So that's okay. That's all right. So I just want to welcome each of you to this conversation because financial literacy is very vital and important to our communities, whether our people believe it or know it at all. So, Nicole, I'm going to ask you because that's what you do on campus. What? How do you define financial literacy?
So financial literacy is knowing how to manage your finances. So whether that is knowing that you need to have a budget, or knowing what the rules of managing credit are, or knowing that you should save and invest, and maybe even knowing some definitions of what stocks and bonds and mutual funds and those things are. But it's not necessarily application. And
Mhm.
so financial literacy is just like we learn how to read, doesn't mean that we actually comprehend everything. We know the words, we don't necessarily comprehend, or we may not be able to apply some of the things that we read to our lives. So I think it's really important for us to not just talk about financial literacy, but financial wellness as well, because that then takes us from just knowing what to do, but also how to apply it into our
Mm.
everyday lives. So it's like the difference between knowing that an apple's a better snack than a bag of chips versus actually picking the apple over the
Right.
bag of chips.
I love that.
And so that's how I think about financial literacy. So we do teach financial literacy, but we're also trying to help students apply it, so that they're not just aware of what the rules are, but that they're also applying it to their lives.
Love that. Dr. Tyra, same question.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, financial literacy, I have to definitely agree with that application aspect to literacy in general, especially with financial literacy. And with the disparity of information that has been shared from generation to generation in the Black culture and the African American culture, we fall short, when it comes to that financial literacy. But it's all about application, and just like Nicole said, it's about knowing the information and then knowing how to apply it. And application, it means everything, because if you don't effectively understand something, if you don't have the ability to understand something, then the chances that you will use it effectively is slim to none. So I would just piggyback and just say share that aspect of it, because application, of course, for educators out there, is the highest level of thinking.
Yes.
It's the highest level of learning. And so if you can apply something, then that means you know it and that you understand it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and if I could add to the definition, when I think of literacy as well, and Nicole, I think the word that you were consistent in you using is knowing,
Yeah.
um, because there are different levels of knowing. There are different subjects with respect to finance, if credit, retirement, savings, investing. It's different levels, but the knowing part is so vital. Um, I was, I am blessed. I feel God put me in a spot where I am right now, where I'm working with employees of the city. Um, and a lot of these employees in New York City look like us. And I was extremely disheartened um, to meet with a client a while ago where she'd been working with the city for 47 years and she started investing from day one. And so I really expected, okay, yeah, she's got it together. And when I opened up her account balance, it blew me away how much she had there. And she said, well, my sergeant told me not to gamble with my money and to put it into something safe. And I'll be honest with you, I did not have the heart to tell her, even if she just put 50% of it in investing in the market, she could have retired 15, 20 years ago. So for me, that knowing, that knowledge, um, it goes a long way. And also that knowledge in knowing who to get the information from.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I'm intentional about, when people find out what I do, the first thing they say is, okay, so what should I invest in? And I don't know about anybody else, but my answer is always, if you ask that question and I answer it, you should probably run the other way
Exactly.
because I don't know you. Therefore, how do I know what it is that I'm telling you to invest in is, and Nicole, you remember this word, is suitable
Suitable.
for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So um that's that knowing is so vital to our existence, it's not even funny. So thank you for that. Um, let's go a little bit further. Dr. Tyra, I know a lot of things that you have done is in taxes and working with business owners in order for them to create opportunities for themselves to align their businesses. What did that look like for you?
I was literally reflecting on that when Nicole was giving her definition, and then when I gave my definition, because I was thinking about certain people would pop up in my head who just really did not have the ability to comprehend,
Right.
what to do, with their, even what to do even with their expenditures,
Hmm.
what to do, as a business owner, what benefits you have as a business owner, and what to do when your business is not making money, what to focus on, and I always tell people the tax code was written as a guide for you to live your life in this country and to benefit from everything that the tax code will allow you to benefit from. But um, when I was contracted in the city of Shreveport with my entrepreneurship course, the financial side of business was always the Achilles heel for all of the business owners, and that was always a struggle. To some struggle to want to do it because that was just a block, a barrier there,
Right.
and others, they just took it head on and they just say, hey, I need extra time, I need extra coaching, and they would get that. But that financial literacy aspect also in our nonprofit, in 2010 we started financial literacy courses with after school program for elementary. We started with elementary and we started with junior high, and then we got to high school. And even now we do young adult. We have a young adult incubator. And even from those experiences, I find that the youth are more eager,
Hmm.
because they haven't made the mistakes yet. So they don't have the
Right.
fear
Right.
that most of the adults have, in, either spending money or not spending money. Say, oh, I don't want to spend anything because I remember when, XYZ happened and I'm just going to put all of my money in this account,
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I remember a client had two or $300,000 in filing as a 1040 Schedule C and paying $20,000 in taxes. So not realizing, I said, you need to graduate your LLC. You have
Mm.
to graduate it, and so just understanding what that means as a business owner and mitigating your tax liability. We changed her to an S Corp and then she didn't owe any money the next year.
Love it. Yes.
So it's just about not only knowing it, but being open enough to listen. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Love that.
Nicole, you work with students at UNC Charlotte, and how important is the literacy that you teach? How important is that not only to your students, but how also important is that to our community?
So I think it's extremely important. And oftentimes when I'm in, like, so we do a couple of things. We do workshops, presentations. I had one today. I was meeting with first gen students earlier today to talk about financial literacy. But we also do one-on-one coaching with them so that we can sit down with them, help them create their first budget, help them set up their savings accounts, make sure they understand a credit card before they apply for one.
Mm.
But oftentimes the conversation will end up happening during the presentations where myself and the instructors are all acknowledging all the hard lessons that we had to learn,
Hmm.
the lessons that like the maxing out the credit card, or even just the decision to get a credit card because there were T-shirts being given out
Right.
on our college campuses, which thankfully is outlawed now. Um,
Okay.
but and when we were in college, we didn't have access to our credit score. We didn't know how to, like, we couldn't get a free credit report from every bureau every
Right.
year.
Right.
And so like the access to information was so lacking that we all, like, so many of us, I won't say everybody because some people learn from their parents, but a lot of us had to learn things the hard way, which means that we're starting out behind.
Yeah.
And so by having this type of education while they're in college, some of them are making big financial decisions, whether it's entering into a student loan contract or getting that first credit card. They're signing rent, leases for apartments. So they're making grown-up decisions. So being able to have these conversations in some instances before they're making some of those decisions, but for sure early enough that like most of them, it's not like they're not going to be digging themselves out, is 100%. It's the best scenario that they have available to them. Now, for our community in particular, like Charlotte's is a PWI, but we have a good amount of minority students. We have about 33% of our student population are first gen. So you imagine first gen students often are probably not learning about investing at home.
Right.
And so being able to have this type of education is even more important for those groups, because they not only are, they're not just a typical student that just needs to learn. Like they might actually have witnessed bad. Everybody has a possibility, but they might have more unwinding to do.
Right.
But they also are probably more likely to be figuring college out on their own. They're taking out more student loans. They're not as likely to be getting financial support from families. And I'm not generalizing like this. There's studies and statistics around this. And so it's all the more important. But some of it is also being able to overcome some of the thoughts and ideas that have been passed down from prior generations. So we think about people that might be unbanked, convincing a student, or we were talking today about someone had a conversation with a student who said they haven't considered investing because someone that they know lost everything. So they told them not to. I don't think this was a student. It was another adult, but it's being able to overcome these like fears that might be handed down to us from generations before us as well.
Wow. And I don't remember this as much with Charlotte as I do with New York. The amount of check cashing places, right? And in terms of adding literacy to the conversation, people don't recognize that when you are not doing business with your bank, what you're doing is helping take money out of your community via what we call it the Community Reinvestment Act, which means that banks, based upon a percentage of the deposits, they have to invest in programs in the community. But if you're going to the check cashing place and you're cashing your check and not putting it in the bank, you're taking money out of your community. So that's so vital for our people to know. And I want to, because this is something, Dr. Tyra, you and I have talked about in the past. Our why. What led you to do what it is that you do, and wanting to teach it to the community? What's your why?
Wow. Well, initially, my why was because I saw the disparity of information, being shared. And I was like, because as a former educator, I taught for 12 years in the school system. And most of that time was in our communities, with at-risk kids. And we didn't have the junior achievement programs. We didn't have a lot of, we barely had math classes in some of those charter schools that I taught at,
Wow.
So I was just challenged to develop programs that would fit our kids. But the main reason why, I do what I do is really, initially it started because I wanted to fix my financial situation. So I had to become literate. Thank God I had a father who taught me, just a little bit. We had a cash value policy when I think he started it when I was 5. And then, he taught me about investments. He taught me about insurance. He taught me about taxes. But what made me want to teach it is just seeing the disparity of information being shared to our community. And I started looking when I was an educator and wondering, well, why is this information not in our communities?
Right.
Why is this and why is that? And so when you start seeing, barriers to this information, it's like, oh, there's a barrier. Oh, there's a strategy that was put in place to keep this information from a group of people. Oh, there's a strategy put in place to keep, our people from getting home loans. Oh, but there was a strategy. When I started learning those things, then I became more so of an advocate because I'm a fighter by heart.
Yes.
My dad
Yes.
would tell you. But and it's like, once you tell me that I can't do something, or I see that a group of people don't want our people to do something, that's exactly what I go and do.
Yes.
So my why is really to put our community in a different financial literacy situation, to where not only do we know, but we're constantly applying, generation after generation, we're applying this information to our family life. I ran into so many people over the last 3 years whose family left them 150, 200 acres, 150 acres here, 200 there, 500 acres. They don't even know what to do with it.
Wow.
They don't know what to do with
Wow.
it. So the financial literacy of that group, of that family, it's just not non-existent. So I just find people who really just want to know don't have a clue as to what to do with the assets that they do have, and I just have a passion to help.
Thank you. Love that. Nicole, what's your why?
So my why is a few things. Part of it is just my personal experience growing up and literally having my parents change like our trajectory financially. I started out my life living in a housing projects in New York. When I was 10, they moved us to Colorado, and I remember we got to live in a duplex. So we went from, living in not so safe of a neighborhood
Right.
to only having one neighbor, only sharing a wall with one person, having a yard, like
Right.
life got a little bit better. I mean, we were still renters.
Right.
But then I went away to college. And so having lived in New York and then living in Colorado, I saw very few Black people that were successful financially.
Right.
Many successful people in terms of the impact and the legacy that they left. But in terms of that financial security, I saw very, very little of that. I did have like my godmom when I was really little in New York, lived in a house for a period of time. And I remember, that was just quite amazing. But when I went away to college, I went to Tuskegee University for my first 2 years of college. And that was my first time spending time in the South and seeing Black folks that had nice cars, own homes. And so I didn't see this in Tuskegee, Alabama, just to be clear. But I used to have to go, I flew into Atlanta, spent time in Atlanta, and seeing some of that in Atlanta kind of motivated me to say, wait a second, like this is different.
Yes.
And so then when I moved to Charlotte, I already kind of knew that this was something that I wanted to, an area that I wanted to work in. I was already doing the work on the phone at our mutual former employer.
Yeah.
And so I was already helping people learn how to invest their money for retirement and all of that. But when I came to Charlotte and had that same experience as Atlanta, I was like, okay, so this is possible. And also, even at that point, meeting people from New York that have much different experiences growing up,
Right.
So I'm like, okay, this is possible anywhere. It's just that I wasn't exposed to those things. And so how can, like, what is the formula? And honestly, I don't think it's just financial literacy. There's so many facets that can change, like, our generational wealth, like closing that racial wealth gap and all of that. There's a lot of different components to it.
Yeah.
Education being a huge one. But that was my why. It was just first, just my parents bought a house when I was my senior year of college,
Mm.
and so at that point, I'm in my 20s, they're in their 40s. They achieved that, and that felt like great. Like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, like my
Yeah.
parents. Um, this was a very like real over my lifetime progression financially in our family. And then I got the opportunity to do that in my 20s. And so I'm like, okay, how can I bring more people along? How can I make sure that next generations aren't having to figure this out on their own?
Right.
But like, they set me up. How can I set other people up? Was really
Wow.
it.
I love it. I love it. And if I may, I want to share my why. My why is it's wide ranging. Number one starts with my mom. Um, and my mom had a great job, but my mom did not know how to manage money. And
Mm,
because she didn't know how to manage money, every 2 years when I was from age 5 up to leaving her home at 17 years old, we moved every 2 years. I mean, we
mm,
and there was always that coming home from school one day and that notice on the door. And it's not as if my mother didn't have enough money to be able to pay for it. My mother just didn't didn't know what to do with what she had. She lived for the moment and she didn't live, you know, she didn't take care of the electric bill. She didn't take care of the telephone bill. She didn't take care of rent. She found other things to use the money for. So um, there was that. And the wake up call for me was between my junior and senior year of high school, us living in a homeless shelter.
mm,
That was really a hard wake up call for me. And, I have a lot of family members that unfortunately their lifestyle was not how I wanted to live my life, that street life. And what I also recognized when I talked to people who were from the streets, because I was from the streets as well, they looked at the easy way out to get money as opposed to the hard work of having to sacrifice, having to get to where they were later. And I was always saying to them, "Yeah, but I'd rather do it this way instead of having somebody knock on my door." And then when I saw the impact of that street life on young people with respect to drugs and alcohol, and even spending their money, for example, on designer clothes when they can't even pay their rent, I said, "No, we I have to find a way to bring um, knowledge to my community." And that's why I went into financial services. And that's why I'm intentional in bringing it to the community as much as I possibly can. So that's my why. And it'll always be my why because I see greatness in our people when we do bind together. Um, and I just believe, especially when the first time I saw Black Panther, we could create real Wakandas around this world in order to uplift and empower our people. So that's my why. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. Um,
I love that. Real Wakandas.
yeah, I just think we can, and I'll ask you, Nicole, what does a real Wakanda look like for you?
Ooh, so when I think about the the movie, it's utilizing the resources that we have. And so for them, there was a physical resource that they had available to them that generated their wealth.
Yeah,
But as a community, we have so many resources, and some of that is just in in us. It's in the things that we know,
Our
the things that we
creativity. Yeah.
can do, creativity.
Yes.
I mean, even when you talk about the people from the streets, and how they were going about it, there's a lot to learn. Like Biggie wrote the 10 Crack Commandments, right? I
Yes.
remember reading a business art, like an article in a business magazine that dissected that into real business lessons.
Yes.
There even among the least of us, there is something to learn from us.
Yes.
And so I think it's us being like unified and being able to leverage our creativity, our intelligence, and the resources that we have, because we all have different resources. It's not all money,
Right.
but we all have something to contribute. But how can we come together and create that Wakanda? I think is real and possible.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Tyra, how about you? What does a real Wakanda look like for you?
Very similar to the movie version, because just as Nicole was sharing about the tangible resources, the one resource that I mainly focus on is land. And amazingly, you will find if you talk to enough of us,
Hmm.
you will find that the majority of us own land. We just don't know what to do with it,
Right.
and we don't know how to pass it down.
Mm.
We know how to hold on, and we know how to sacrifice in some cases, because you when you go to, like, I went to my hometown a few years ago, for the first time in a long time, and you see in my old neighborhood all of these old houses and the same families are living there, just a new generation. We know how to hold on to stuff. We don't know how to take care of it all the time, but we know how to hold on to it. But when we do hold on to it and we say, oh, well, I want to give this to my son, I want to give this to my daughter, we don't know how to do that.
Right.
The financial literacy is non-existent as to how to truly do that, because probate end up taking the land,
Right.
or some sitter comes and take your land, or because they want to build something else on that property, they come and take it. My mom's family was going through some litigation a few years ago, regarding 30 acres that was literally taken
Wow.
from my grandfather to continue I-10 in South Louisiana.
Mm.
So I-10 went straight through his property, and they just went and took it from him. So we have, but we had other property,
Right.
that was not properly passed down. So that's my main thing, is the land,
Yes.
because
Can I say something? I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Um, were you done, Dr. Tyra? I'm sorry.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was having a conversation with someone else from the South, and I think that our realities are so different when our family stayed in the South.
Yeah.
I think one of the worst
Mm.
things that happened to our community was the Great Migration, because
Yeah.
remember I said it was Atlanta that opened my eyes to what we were capable of. And you talking about land, that's not a reality for someone that grew up in New York.
No, it's
Exactly.
not. It's
Um,
not.
it's
Exactly.
not. Yeah, that's so. You make a great point
We
about
s- we see that land as something we could sell and build on.
Right.
That's the way we
but you
see it. Not that
but you
we
wouldn't
can
have
maybe
30 acres in New York.
right. No,
Exactly.
where?
Right.
But not only
Yeah,
that. Well, upstate New York, you might, Nicole. But
that's a good
New
point.
York
That's a good point.
City, New York City, no. But me as a New Yorker, if I had that, I would, maybe now I would think differently. I have a different lens. I know I would want to create a farm. I want to do farming because I do believe farming is something that we in our community have got to be intentional about, because there's food deserts all in our communities that
Mhm.
I would want to farm that land. And
Exactly.
again, with the New York mentality and mindset, it's called the concrete jungle for a reason. There's, I mean, if you come to New York, one of the things you'll see is while there's no more land, they're just taking buildings and adding them on top of other buildings.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They're going up. There's no more land. They're just going up, and it's just creating a different dynamic in our city.
And nowadays, it's so open for you to own property outside of the state that you live in. I work with a number of, I have a friend who lives in California and owns property in Cleveland, Ohio, 10 properties,
Mm.
but to complete that question, the answer to that question, the Wakanda can be like a micro ecosystem, kind of like what Nicole was referring to. A micro ecosystem is your family having that land and building. First of all, you want to leave a legacy, so go ahead and start a foundation. That's the part of the financial literacy, because you got to protect what you have. So
Right.
set up a foundation, build the programs that are going to support your family. Someone in your family is going to probably go vocational. Some people may go to college, and so they're going to need scholarships, they're going to need other financial support. When they have their family, what type of support do you have in place for them, in regards to financial literacy? Do you have a financial literacy program in place so that you
Yes.
can help the rest of your family and you build from there? So I think the Wakanda, potential Wakanda, can be a micro ecosystem in each family, to where not only do you build that infrastructure, but you can actually purchase property to where whoever needs to, no one should ever not have a roof over their head.
Amen. Amen.
No one should ever
Amen.
not have that roof. You go and live at the family home. The
Right.
family home has 13 rooms. Pick
Yes.
one.
Right.
Build
Right.
up your savings or build up your money so you can buy your home.
Right.
And then not only that, create the financial system in your family to where you all understand what you need to do in order to qualify for certain funding.
Yes. Yes. Love it.
Understand USDA, understand all of these other agencies that are there with funds to support whatever it is that you want to do. So we have the ability to create that within every family.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I got some questions inboxed to me that I'm just going to throw out. And this first one specifically is for you, Dr. Tyra. The difference between an S Corp and an LLC.
Oh, beautiful question. The difference is the tax liability. So, an LLC, you're going to be taxed much more than you will be taxed as an S Corp. And the reason being is because an S Corp is a corporation, which means that you're structured differently so that you can mitigate tax liability because of your expenditures. So you get more tax deductions on the same things that you're spending your money on as an LLC. So let's say, but the thing is with S corps, you really have to. It's a graduation. So let's say you set up your LLC, and you want to know when can you graduate. You can graduate your LLC to an S corp typically when you're at $100,000 annually in your
Okay.
business.
Okay.
Typically is at you can do it before then, but typically is at 100. And the reason is because you want to start paying yourself, whether it's from an owner's draw or whether you put yourself on payroll. And if it's an owner's draw, you could do one time. You can draw one time a year. You could draw or four, once a quarter or whatever, however you want that to look. But the beauty of it is that draw is going to allow you to take advantage of some tax liability. I mean, some tax deductions.
Awesome.
Okay, so there's a lot of credits that you get when you're an S corp. So just for example, this is why business planning is important. If you start a business and you plan it properly, and you understand the financial scope of it and the landscape of your business, you can start the first year and make six figures the first year. If you break that down per month or per quarter, how much do you need to make in a quarter, every quarter, to make that six figures in that year? And
Right.
whatever that is, if you know for sure that you can make that six figures, then you might as well go ahead and file that S corp paperwork, because it's after you file the LLC. Then you want to switch and you file a 2553 form, tax form, to get your S corp approved, and they will retroactivate it for that year so that you can take advantage of the tax breaks.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Love it.
Very cool.
Wow. I, I didn't know that, just so you know. And I thought I knew everything, but I obviously know nothing when it comes to that. So thank you for that. Nicole,
Well,
um, Roth versus pre-tax. And I know um, we worked a lot with pre-tax plans and just Roth IRAs, but now there are a lot of Roth 401ks, Roth 403bs, Roth 457s. So Roth versus pre-tax.
So a Roth. So I'm gonna inevitably call it a Roth IRA, but to
Okay.
your point, Roth can exist on a 401k. Um, and the other tax designations that you said that some people probably haven't heard of, but for reference, they are all operate comparable to a 401k. But a Roth IRA allows you to contribute to your retirement based on money you've already paid taxes on. Taxes have been withheld. You don't take any tax benefit from it today. But when you withdraw your money in retirement, you get to take it all out without paying any taxes. And so the significance of that, well, so and to before I explain the significance of the Roth IRA, on the other hand, our pre-tax accounts like a traditional IRA or a regular 401k, those allow you to not pay taxes on your contributions now, but you do pay taxes when you retire. I think the way that I think about it is I think in prior generations, and by prior, I think probably just a generation before us or so, and before that, often families were able to live on a lot less money in retirement because they bought their home, they paid for their home, and they retired and they were able to just live like have enough money to pay their property taxes, to eat, pay utilities, and so on. But their income was a lot lower. So the expectation was that our tax rate would be lower when we retire.
When we retire, right?
And so being able to defer that tax, paying taxes from now until then was beneficial. I think fewer families today are under that structure. A lot of us buy houses, then we want to upgrade our house, and we might retire and still have a mortgage. And so the reality is that when we retire, our generation, I think, and those behind us, we're more likely to need to replace our income.
Right.
And so if we're replacing our income, then our tax rate is going to be the same as while we were working. And as a result, being able to take that money out later without paying any taxes is hugely beneficial. And so if we were talking about when Roth products first were introduced, which they started as just IRAs, if we were at that time, those that were probably getting closer to retirement, there's not a big benefit. But for folks that still have like a good amount of time for that compound interest to accumulate, being able to take that money out tax-free is a game changer. When we are presenting on just the impact of compound interest, we have a presentation that shows that if someone were to contribute from age 25 to 35, $5,000 a year, so a total of $50,000, then by the time they retire, just that 50,000 would be worth about, if I'm remembering correctly, around 800,000 at about 8% return. Forgive me if I'm a little bit off, but it's in that ballpark. So imagine all of that excess money that you never contributed, but that just grew in your retirement plan, being able to be taken out tax-free versus the other side of it, where you would be paying taxes at probably a 20+% tax rate because you're replacing your later in life income.
Gotcha. Thank you. And the way I always explain it when I'm doing seminars is Roth is the tax benefit down the line.
Mm-hmm.
The pre-tax is the benefit now where you're lowering your taxable income. So because it's lowering, there's less there, but you have to pay it later. But with the Roth, once you get to that threshold of 5 years and attainment and taking it out at 59 and a half, that's all tax-free money. And it's one of the products that we have that actually allows for that, which I really like. Okay, go ahead.
One of the things that I don't want to get lost, though, is if you have access to a 401k that is being matched by your employer, no matter what, we always want to take advantage of that employer match first, because that is an instant 100% return.
Amen.
You put in 100, they put in 100. So we never want to leave any of that on the table. And while there's a Roth 401k, it's up to your employer to offer that.
Offer
And
it, yeah.
so the traditional 401k that is pre-tax is more common. So just want to make sure that we don't forego those
Yeah.
benefits, because they're not replaceable.
Yeah, most employers do not contribute to Roth. They contribute to the pre-tax. So I'm with
Yeah.
you on that.
Yeah.
Um, Either one of you on this one, implementing life insurance either into my business plan or into my financial plan. Thoughts on that?
Life insurance is a bank. It's your bank. That's what I share with my business owners. You ever want to establish a bank that you can always be approved to get funds from,
Mm,
insurance is the way. You have different instruments. You have the universal life. You have a number of instruments that you can kind of play around with, and you sit with a financial planner to decide, what instrument is best for you. But yeah, insurance plays a huge role in not only funding an entity, funding a family, funding a business, funding anything. I actually consulted a group of uh, business owners. I think they were business or professionals. Some of them may have had jobs, but they came together to establish a corporation, and they used the universal life policy to fund the business. And it was $1 million, policy, and they all put in and things of that sort. And then in about a few months later, they were able to take a little bit of the money out and invest in the first product, and it was a patent. So just starting a business, it's so many different ways in starting a business that immediately has assets, and using insurance. And then of course, for family, life insurance and things of that sort, you always want to have that, but also be able to understand how to apply your life insurance to life experiences,
yes.
because we don't have to wait until we're gone, say, oh, it's all about the beneficiary. No, not all the time. You can use the life policy for, during your life, because especially if you have term, it comes to an end.
Yes.
And that's a part of the the knowledge and the effective application in regards to life insurance.
And it's tax free.
And it's tax free. Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
anything you wanted to add about insurance?
The only thing I would add is just it's important to know the difference between all the different types of policies, because they're not all created equal.
Right.
Yes.
And also it's important that even if you have it at your job, make sure you have your own policy, because when you leave that job, you may be able to convert it, but it would be better if you had locked in better rates earlier, than being stuck, having to convert a policy later.
And I posted this week, and I don't know if this week or last week, I don't know if any of you have seen this post that GoFundMe is not life
It's not
insurance.
life insurance. No,
I saw that.
no.
And I've seen it in my own family, right? Where relatives of mine have used that. But it is, number one, not sustainable. Um, and it's just not what GoFundMe is for. Um, I can't remember the guy from Houdini who passed away. His family had to do a GoFundMe. And I thought that was a shame. That meant he did not properly plan
Right.
um, for his future, whatever monies he had from publishing or whatever from the music. Obviously, he that wasn't planned either. So there's that part. Um, Either of you on um, how to use trusts in order to avoid estate taxes?
Mm-hmm.
That is not my area of expertise.
Well, I could touch a little bit on it. I write provisions in trust. I've been heavily diving into trust over the last 2 years. Uh, but trust can be used in so many different ways because the basic knowledge that you can, I mean, anybody can look this up in irrevocable trust versus revocable trust. And basically what that means is irrevocable means that nothing can be changed once you lay out all the provisions in the trust, that nothing can be reconverted back to anything else. Everything has to stay. Unlike revocable, you can make some changes. You can make changes to the trustees. You can make changes to what's in the trust. If you have LLCs or whatever assets you have, you could, take it out and then put it back in and things of that sort in a revocable. So just understand that there's those two types of trust, but then there are many different types of trust in those two types of trust. So you have a land trust, and then you have spendthrift trust. So you have a gamut of other types of trust. The most important thing is that you get your information from someone who understands trust, who understands the provisions, because as I write provisions in some of my clients' trust, the provisions has everything to do with your family makeup. It has everything to do with the assets that you have. And a lot of times we don't even know what assets we have because we really and truly don't know the definition of assets. And most people would tell you, oh, I don't have anything. And then when you ask them specific questions like, oh, yeah, I do have that. Oh, I didn't do anything with that LLC. I set it up 10 years ago and I just haven't done anything, but I paid, the renewals every year to the state. I'm like, well, you have an aged corporation, which means that the value of that corporation could very well be in the 100,000s. Let's find out what the value of that LLC is. So just understanding what you have in terms of assets as well, and understanding how to protect it. I always tell, especially the baby boomers, they're about to leave, if they're still here, they're about to leave their homes to their children. The best thing you could do is put it in a trust. Do not leave that house. Put that, write a will, and then put that, that child's name on the will and think that that child is going to get that house. They're not going to get it. And if they do, they would have to fight for it, because you still have to go through the probate situation, and then you have to go through other things. But if you put it in a trust, put that home in a trust, that child is guaranteed to get it because probate won't touch it.
Can I add something about homes and how we transfer wealth with homes? Jerome, I'm not sure if your mic is working because.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
So I love what you said, and just about like how do we transfer our homes in particular.
Yeah.
Because even when we talk about land, it's the same thing, right? Like
Right.
we have to transfer that and make sure it doesn't get lost through probate. But I've experienced, not in my own family, but well, a little bit in my own family, but also with friends who have aging parents that do own property. This I'm going to call predatory reverse mortgage.
Yes.
Where the parents
Yes.
think that they can take out this reverse mortgage. Oh, you don't have to make any payments.
Right.
What happens when you're gone?
Yes.
Either your children have to pay that back,
Yes.
or they're going to lose the home.
Mhm.
And especially in some of my inherited family through my marriage lost their parents' home because of that reverse mortgage. And it wasn't even from where I sit, I don't know that it was necessary. It wasn't a need. It was something that somebody knocked on the door, I believe, and convinced them to do. And then they just shelled out some money, sharing a little bit of pocket change with everybody.
Right.
And next thing you know, an area that has houses worth almost $1 million, that house is gone.
Yep.
Worth it now, not necessarily at the time that they passed. But if that house had been able to stay in the family, what a game changer it would have been. And so I recently was talking to another friend whose mother was someone else in the family was trying to convince them to do that, or just to refinance. But still, like either way, when that house is paid off, I love what you're saying about even putting in the trust, because then you can designate like what is your expectation, where it's not going to be a fight in court
Right.
among all children on what's going to happen with the house, like in
Right.
soul food. I
Yeah.
want to sell the house.
Right.
Exactly.
All this stuff. But like we have to just like really pay attention to the decisions that our elders are being faced with that they might not
Yes.
understand,
Yeah.
and kind of help guide them in that way.
And if I could add to that, Nicole, because what you're talking about is how communities in New York that were historically communities that were homes owned by us, how
Mm-hmm.
those communities turned because of this.
Mm.
um, that for brownstones, which there are brownstones in New York now that are worth $10 million, but because of either a reverse mortgage or somebody knocking on the door and or dropping a bag of people lost their homes
Yeah.
and trust. So and when I think of trust, I think of, for me, control from the graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
because I can create a trust, and I did create a trust, and I can create that trust for my wishes to be followed. It could be as crazy as I want it to be,
That's
but
right.
that's my dying wish, and that's my control from the graveyard. And that I got that saying, control from the graveyard, when I was doing the CFP, when I was
Mm.
studying for the CFP, that it's control from the graveyard, number one, but also, most importantly, if I'm leaving it to my children, depending upon the estate tax number, it avoids them having to pay the estate taxes because it's passing on via that trust as
Mm.
opposed to directly to them. So it's
Yeah.
very important that our people get educated on that and on all
Yeah.
facets of finances. And we only touched on a little bit, but we're coming to an end. Um, and I just want to ask one final question of each of you about um, what can we do to ensure that we are spreading and sharing financial literacy, not just during this month, but beyond this month. And Dr. Tyra, I'll start with you.
Well, I start with with the woman in the mirror,
Mm,
as Michael Jackson would say. Just making sure, I know I always hold myself accountable for making sure that I'm doing something with the business I've already established. I've been in business for over 20 years, and just making sure that, even though, like I said, this year has changed for me because I'm doing some other things, but making sure that I'm still advocating for my community, to be financially literate, and not only my community, but communities that look like me outside of the United States.
yes.
We're working with Nigeria, a group in Nigeria right now, with a farm project. So and so we're educating them on how to access, funds here as versus over there and things of that sort. So we just have to be adamant at making sure that we stay on top of our knowledge and our comprehension of financial literacy, because it changes, especially with fintech now. And I took a fintech certification course last year, and you would just have to continue learning all of the nuances of financial literacy, and then making sure that we teach this to our children.
Hmm.
I noticed a lot of young. I think those were millennials. I can't keep up with the generations, but they were heavily a few years ago into the trading. Those
Mm,
trading companies, and they were trading. Doing the
okay.
day trading
Day
thing.
trading, yes.
So that's a form of financial literacy, but for some of them, that was just a way to make money.
Right.
But they learned something there that they can pass down, and not only pass down, pass up you
Yeah.
know, to their parents
Hmm.
and to their grandparents and to their siblings and to, so we just have to make sure that we understand that, you know, what we're learning is something valuable to pass down and pass over to the next person.
Awesome. Nicole, how about you?
I love that. I mean, of course, you know, we've got to stay vigilant in knowing, you know, what's changing, and you know, how do we even connect with that generation? One of the things I really love about what they were doing during COVID was the fact that some of them lost some money, but they were learning in the process. I have some students on my team that was their experience, but they learned from it and they've pivoted and they've gotten better. And in some instances, realize that maybe I shouldn't day trade, maybe I should get a mutual fund. But
Right.
if they're learning that at 18, like their future is so bright. But I feel like, I mean, this is what I do every day. So
Right.
this is an
Right.
easy answer for me, but also like obviously within my family, you know, I have actually, I've done programs like this through my church, and invited some of my family from other states, because we did it on WebEx. There's just reminding people
Right.
that it what is happening today, or what today looks like, doesn't have to be what tomorrow looks like.
Yes.
And making sure that they know where to get the resources, but just not giving up.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
And if I could just say how I want to do it, I believe darkness is the absence of light.
Mhm.
Therefore, um, the absence of financial literacy is the absence of knowledge. So even if I'm on the elevator with someone, somehow, some way, a financial conversation is going to come up. And while I would never advise somebody what to do without me suitability knowing them, but I want to also always challenge people to learn more. And I always will start, are you investing in your 401k at your job? No, you're not. You're self-employed. Do you have a self-employed plan? And if not, why? And so for me, it's bringing the light of knowledge to every space that I could possibly occupy, because people show you in ways that I don't know how, that I'm aware of, that their lack of knowledge with respect to finances. I cannot explain how I could figure it out, but I could figure it out. And then there I go, I'm on them. And I never, especially young people, I love sharing it with young people. Um, I just, as I was coming home, my next door neighbor, I was so proud to hear that she's with Chase and she's studying. She's for her licensing exam. And all I could say to her is, if you need some help with some tips on how to steal a point here, steal a point there, let me know. It does my heart well to hear young people wanting to get involved in doing this. So it's me bringing light and knowledge into every space that I could possibly occupy. So I just wanted to share that. So
Yeah.
my Buy Black for Life family, do know there's more coming. Dr. Tyra is going to join me on Saturday. Nicole, anytime we could figure something out, you need us, we got you. This is your home. You know how I feel. I love you both. I want to thank you for joining us, for sharing some knowledge. Again, whether you're watching this live or on replay, please let us know where you are, who you are, and if you have any questions, we would certainly be able to answer them for you. But in the meantime, I pray that everyone has a wonderful and a safe evening. And as usual, I ask for the love of our people to continue to buy Black for Life. Good night.
Right.